So from there, we leave comic book universes behind and we jump into monster universes because that is all the rage right now, especially with Godzilla versus Kong recently coming out and doing gangbusters around the world. And that is exactly who we're going to be talking about right now with a little tidbit that isn't the end of the world, but I thought it was kind of interesting and wanted to talk about it for a minute. Of course, I am talking about Godzilla versus Kong, as I said, and apparently, while speaking with Collider, Godzilla vs. Kong director Adam Wingard gave some slightly contradictory statements regarding an aborted post-credit scene. According to Wingard, the film came very close to having one, but then they reworked it a bit and put it in the actual body of the film. He doesn't specify what the scene is exactly, but he first stresses that it was not intended to set up the next movie, as so many post-credit scenes do nowadays. We actually did shoot a post-credit scene, but we ended up using it in the movie because we shot it while we were making the film. We realized we needed a scene at the end of the movie, Wingard said. We had this footage and we were like, wait a minute, if we actually just change this thing about this footage we originally shot for the post-credit thing, we can actually use it in the movie and it's really effective. We kind of just sacrificed our post-credit scene, which makes sense because honestly, it's not even like the post-credit scene is teeing up anything specific. It wasn't like saying this is definitively where the MonsterVerse is going next. But then, weirdly enough, Wingard then contradicted himself by saying the next post-credits scene actually would have set a new movie up, but there was some concern about backing the MonsterVerse into a corner. Well, I take that back, he said. It would have done something, but it would have backed us into a corner, said the filmmaker. I think the MonsterVerse is at a crossroads where audiences need to vote if they want to see another one of these films before they continue. I think that's a really healthy thing. We've gone through a decade or so of the rise of the universe movies, the versus movies. Obviously, Marvel does it best, but at the end of the day, I don't think these movies should imitate Marvel necessarily. They should be their own thing. So I think it's better not to back ourselves into a corner to a certain degree. It makes sense that we don't have a post-credit scene. I agree. I think he's right. They don't need one because they have been they were setting up a universe to a degree with this MonsterVerse movies, at least with the King of the Monsters, but the movies were never focused on the next movie. It wasn't like the Marvel movies or even the DC movies to a degree. And I mean, look at the Universal's Dark Universe. It's like the movies have started, and Marvel as well, they're getting there. Their movies are starting to become more about the next movie, about setting things up for a universe, and not as much about the actual movie that you're watching right then. That's one thing I can say the MonsterVerse has not been doing. They've had post-credit scenes on some of their other films that have alluded to what's to come next, and those build. But if you look at like the original 2014 Godzilla, Kong Skull Island, and even King of the Monsters, those movies, regardless if you like them or not, and I like some of them and I didn't like some, but even the ones I didn't like, I will say that they were focused on that movie, not building a universe. And that should always be the focus, is the movie you're in now. Look at what was it, The Mummy, which was the beginning of the Dark Universe. That thing was all about a universe. They were trying to build a universe in one movie. And that's just not how it works. They don't need to be concerned with the next movie. You need to concern yourself with the movie you're making now. And I think he's got a good point, that they clearly don't have a clear vision of where this movie is going next, where this franchise is going next. And with all the money that the Godzilla vs. Kong has made, I'm sure it's going somewhere. But they don't know where, so why back yourself into a corner? Why put something out there that you might have to retcon down the line or deal with? It doesn't need a post-credit scene just because all the Marvel movies have had them and now all these other movies have started having. By the way, Marvel was not the first one to have post-credit scenes. Post-credit scenes go way back. I mean, hell, Masters of the fucking Universe, the He-Man movie back in the 80s, had a post-credit scene. Post-credit scenes are not anything new. Marvel just kind of made it to where they're expected in these big-budget movies. Because of Marvel, I think people do sit in theaters through the credits wondering, is there going to be a post-credit scene? That's when you see all the phones flip up. People are Googling, is there a post-credit scene in X movie? If you go to the theaters, I see it all the time. Hell, I do it. But no, you don't have to have one. And whether I think they're saying, oh, he contradicted himself. I don't think that's the case. I think that they probably shot a fairly vague scene that could possibly go somewhere, but they could probably tweak it. So he was saying it may have backed us into a corner depending on what we did with it. But I think that's great. I thought the fact that it didn't have a post-credit scene was somewhat refreshing, which is weird because years ago having a post-credit scene was refreshing. You don't have to have a post-credit scene. It does not make your movie any less or more. And just throwing one in there because is not the right way. Throwing one in there like Kong Skull Island had a great post-credit scene. The thing with Monarch and showing Godzilla and all that, that was fantastic. Because when Kong Skull Island came out, some people weren't 100% sure, especially like people just, your average moviegoer, wasn't 100% sure or didn't know that this took place in that same universe. So that was kind of that was like, whoa, holy shit, that's fucking Godzilla on that wall. That's a mural of Godzilla. So I thought that was pretty cool. The post-credit scene for, what was it, King of the Monsters, I remember it was all right, but I didn't really care for King of the Monsters. But either way, no, it didn't need one, and I think that this is, a good call on his behalf, and I don't think he should be tore up about it. I do remember when this movie came out last week, a lot of people were talking about, why is there no post-credit scene? What's going on? Why is there no post-credit scene? There's no post-credit scene because they didn't have a fucking post-credit scene. They didn't have something to say. Why put something in there just to have it in there? Then you end up with some of these, because there have been Marvel movies that they put a post-credit scene in that really had no purpose, no point. It was there, and you're like, what is this shit? I mean, look at Shazam, I believe it was. They had a post-credit scene in that apparently is going to have nothing to do with the sequel. Well, a lot of people are speculating the worm thing is going to have nothing to do with the sequel. And now people that are real hardcore into that comic are going to go into the sequel, and that little worm guy's not going to be there, and they're going to be like, where's my worm? They backed themselves into a corner. They clearly decided to go a different direction. I don't know if they're going to deal with that or not, but it was a thing. So it's not going to be in the sequel, and there's going to be some people that are going to be asking, where's my little worm guy? I don't know his name clearly. But yeah, this, like I said, this was just a little story. I thought it was just kind of a neat little insight from this director. And Adam Wingard, he seems like he knows what he's doing. He's made some pretty good films up to this point. So, I mean, he had one, I haven't seen it, Death Note, I believe it was. It was a doozy from what I understand, but all of his other films have been pretty good. So I'm excited to see what this guy does next, and I'm putting some faith in his decision, and his decision was to not have a post-credit scene. And I'm going to go with him and say, you know what? That was his decision to make, and I support that.
Thanks for checking out this clip from the Jarcast Movie Podcast. If you like this and want more, then check out the Jacob Anders Review YouTube channel, where you can also find movie reviews every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday. You can also listen to the entire podcast on all major podcasting platforms such as Spotify, Google, and iTunes. So if you prefer audio, whichever one is your preferred, check it out there. Once again, I really appreciate it, and thanks for watching. And as always, stay sexy, YouTube.